Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining us tonight on episode 21, season 4 of The Standoff with Brad and Richie here on New Zealand Sport Radio. You can catch us on Wednesday evenings on Facebook and YouTube throughout the season. Evening, Richie. Well, we saw a massive amount of one-sided battles and a disappointing Warriors performance in horrible weather that Paul had to sit through with me. How was your weekend, and what did you think of the round?
Evening, Brad. Yeah, it was a funny old round, wasn't it? With the very high scores and one-sided games. Obviously, the Warriors game was a bit of a disappointment, but nice that you got to catch up with Paul. But how you doing? You're looking nice and streamlined.
Yes. So, as you guys all know, we were raising money for cancer. And to do so, I was going to shave my head, and I did that on Friday. Probably not the best time with the weather we had, and knowing that I was about to sit through 2 games of football in horrible conditions at Mount Smart, but bit the bullet and did it, and we raised, I think it was $2,023. So super stoked.
Well done.
But yeah, so currently pretty much living in a beanie until tonight when I decided to show you guys that I actually went through with it. But yeah, it was great. And I see we got Mikey and Simon in. Paul's going to be with us. He's just away from his desk at the moment, but he will be popping out, I believe, later on. But yeah, there he is there. So I
was grabbing it there.
All good. I'm just going to do the quick rundown, and then we'll jump straight into talking to you about the game, Paul. So while we're here on Wednesday evenings, 8 p.m., you'll catch our show at your convenience on iHeartRadio, Spotify, all those places. Just remember to search for New Zealand Sport Radio. As always, we're going to cover everything you need to know in the week that was rugby league, including our top stories of the week, a review of round 18, and an update on our tips. We'll then answer some questions from you guys, as well as some questions we got for each other. We'll then preview round 9 and make our picks before ending the night with a bit of Super League. So where are we going? Yeah, so remember to send us comments and questions throughout the show, and we may as well jump straight into the top stories of the week, which we are starting with Paul. So as we mentioned last week, Paul was coming to join me at the Warriors game, his first live Warriors game. Couldn't have picked a better night for it, Paul. What did you think, and how was your game day experience?
Oh, look, it was the weather was horrible. Let's be blunt. So from that point of view, it wasn't great because it was wet. But I was up there for 2 reasons. Obviously, first off to see you to help you video you raising money for Shape for a Cure, and as Richie said, you're looking rather streamlined on the top there now. No mullet anymore. Or congratulations, you raised $2,023, and I do need to put another $50 in there. So I will. I think you can still donate, folks. I will just throw that link into the live chat. But congratulations, Brad, on raising over $2,000 for the for the cancer research and awareness, which Shape for a Cure. So fantastic effort by you there. Wayne Brown really should buy a roof for the stadium. Oh, hell yes. That was definitely one that I was thinking is, yeah, look, buy the stadium, put a proper roof in it like they've done down in Dunedin, and let's have a look at that. Match day experience. As I said to you, we got there for the pre-game, so we were there way early before.
Yeah. About 5:30, I think it was around 5 or before 5:30, really, wasn't it?
Yep.
Because we went for the New South Wales Cup game, which kicked off at 5:30.
So I thought that's like, look, it felt busier or as busy as like a super game at that time of. We're talking way before it actually kicks off. So, look, the crowd was really good. The atmosphere for New Zealand, and I'll explain that in a second, was good. The thing is, Kiwi crowds don't know how to chant. I don't know if it's a bit different in the football for the Phoenix. Richie, I think you've been to a Phoenix game down there in Wellington, haven't you?
Yeah, it's pretty good.
So there's a bit of singing, a bit of chanting there. But in all rugby and rugby league games, a bit of singing, a bit of chanting would be really kind of cool to me to add to the atmosphere.
Singing's for soccer players, Paul. You know.
Well, you get you get it at Twickenham, you get it at all the rugby union, and you'll get it. I'm pretty sure you get rugby league grounds in the UK as well.
English rugby union and rugby league players are just as useless as soccer players, so it all kind of floats together.
But I just think it adds to the atmosphere. But no, look, a good crowd, good atmosphere from that. Even though they were they had a struggling game. Let's be honest. There was the kind of bit of an exodus, kind of 10 minutes before the end, whatever it was, which is
Warriors shuffle was in effect. Yep. I actually noticed there was quite a decline in the crowd at halftime. So I think there was a lot of people that at halftime just decided the weather was too much, which was understandable. You know, it was not great. I don't know how it was for you driving all the way back to Waihi, but I didn't enjoy driving the 15 minutes home. So.
It wasn't. Look. I mean, it took 2 days for my shoes to dry out from that one. Look, Robbie goes, Paul, how cold were you? It wasn't actually that cold. Okay, two things here. One is I wear long johns and long sleeve thermals for this. I've also got a sheep fleece liner for my coat as well. So look, I survive these sort of things pretty well. It was less fun to see one of my hands was dyed black from the black of the because my gloves got that wet, and it took a day for my gloves to dry out in front of the fire. It was very wet. And look, unless you are a dedicated fan, why the hell are you there in that weather? God help you. I mean, well done to everyone who was there. It doesn't help that Brad sits in the most ludicrous seats.
My seats are amazing.
In there, they're not covered. They're on the halfway line. I'm much for watching again from behind the sticks, where you can see the shape of the attack, shape of the defense. Sure, it means that half the game's at the end of the pitch, but I like being behind the posts. So if you're going to be in an open stand, be behind the posts, please. Don't be on the halfway line where you can't really tell what's going on.
I like the halfway line, and I like being behind the interchange.
Me too.
Yeah,
you're insulting my seats that I've had for like 18 years, Paul. You know,
there wasn't enough banter with the bench, though, was there? There was no banter towards the bench. And by the way, Simon, Rotorua International Stadium is way, way colder than Mount Smart. Mount Smart was wet, but it wasn't that cold.
Yeah, and there's more banter when it's not so wet, Paul. You know, people were just trying to survive.
The banter from those seats is at halftime when the refs are going up the tunnel, and you've got easy access to go yell at them over the railing.
Yeah,
Robbie's saying, can someone start a GoFundMe to get Paul a Warriors jersey? The Wizards kind of one. It's called patreon.com/NZ Sport Radio. So go on there and support the station and support the channel, folks. And maybe I can get a Warriors jersey.
Yeah, they're expensive. Jeez.
But yeah, Patreon,
no. It was great that you came up for it. Not the best weather, but it is, like I said before we went on air, you're not really a proper Warriors fan if you're not going to a wet game and watching a loss. So you've kind of ticked that off the bucket list. So next time go in good weather for a win and you'll be onto a winner. But
look from match experience, look, the food you get at Eden Park is shite. Let's be blunt.
Yep. Yes.
And
I've been telling you how bad Eden Park is for ages.
Oh, I totally agree. Eden Park's is a horrible stadium. And the fact that they Garden of Eden was kind of rubbish, and it's not home of rugby bollocks. Someone says last Friday, Rebel Sports sold out of Warriors jerseys in Rotorua. There you go. Look, having the food vans there is a great idea. And you can also get amazing. Well, my last time at Eden Park, you had basically two choices of beer: mid-strength or normal Spates. Whereas you've got your Spates, Lion Red, Panhandle, if you like your craft beers. I think the range of beers is also much better. We're really impressed with kind of the food and beverage options there, and the crowds are good as well. Which is, it's a fun day out, as long as it's not pissing it down.
Yeah. Me and Richie have been in many of those situations where you're sitting there going, why the hell are we here? Like, why are we getting wet? I've got Sky at home, nice warm house. But you still go anyway. It's all part of it. I just need to invest in a better poncho because I was soaked through before the first game kicked off. So I'm investing in a new poncho, I think. But we may as well move on. Cheers, Paul. I don't know if you're sticking around or if you're leaving.
I might be around for a little bit. We'll see.
All right.
How do I find crowds compared to Union? Look, at a sort of club game, the crowds are better because there's more of them for the ground. But if you're talking about, but to me, it was pretty similar to an All Blacks game in the fact of the amount of singing, the amount of noise you made. Obviously, in an All Blacks game, you've got 45,000, you've got twice many people, so it's a bit louder. But I would say that they're not that different. And let's be honest, a lot of leagues like Union, a lot of Union fans like League. So to my mind, they're not that different. At the end of the day, I think if it was a Tonga game, then I'd notice a difference. But as far as a Warriors one, I don't think that much different than an All Blacks crowd. To be honest.
Yeah.
Right. Do you regret going on Friday? No, you never regret going to a Warriors game. What a stupid question.
No, I've been to an American football game in snow. I can handle rain. It's fine. I don't mind. If we had regular snow games here, it might be different. But no, I always, you pay good money for your season tickets, so you got to go to every game, rain, hail, or shine. Hopefully more shine than rain and hail. But we may as well move on, Richie, since we took up a big space there. But first one, I just threw it in before after I gave you the show notes, so I'll catch you off guard. But we've kind of talked about it quite a lot. But Sean Johnson looks likely to miss this week's game due to the pending arrival of his second child. He has been named, but assistant coach Justin Morgan confirmed in an interview today that Sean and his partner Kayla are meeting a specialist tomorrow. But we'll definitely know for sure what's going on by Friday when the team flies out. All signs are pointing to him not playing, which is disappointing, but completely understand. I feel like you put your family first until it's like elimination finals or grand final time, and then you see the players kind of change. I can't really have much say on it as the childless one of the podcast, so I can let you fill in more due to you having the children's.
Yeah, I was talking with my son about this actually yesterday, and he said, surely you wouldn't miss the game for that. So
man after my own heart.
Yeah, coming from my own offspring. So, but I understand though, having been to all my kids' childbirths. So, I'm just thankful that if we're going to miss SJ, it's in a game where we're playing a team missing all their best players as well. But I wouldn't put my house on that making a difference, because as we've seen a couple of times this year, us playing a depleted side doesn't necessarily mean we get the result. Yeah.
So fingers crossed something happens and he can play, but if not, the main thing is that the kid comes out fit and healthy. That's what matters. So next bit, my annual section of stick it into the Dragons. interim coach of the Dragons, Ryan Carr's urged all Dragons players to exit the club if they don't want to adhere to the club standards. Two parts of this, Richie. One, should the guy that isn't in charge next year be saying this? And two, if that's the case, why force Ben Hunt to stay?
Yeah, I mean,
I understand what he's saying.
Yes, yeah, I very much understand what he's saying, especially at a club where they're really struggling. So, him being the interim coach there now, he's gonna have his own standards that he wants the playing group to live up to. So, from that point of view, I understand. Yeah, I mean, on the Ben Hunt thing, like I kind of said last week, I'm glad they dug their heels in because.
Oh, nice. We're up to 2073.
Is that you, Paul? Well done.
Yeah, Paul. It's from mum and dad from the UK, actually. They couldn't get their credit card to work, so I had to do it myself. So $50.
Thank you very much.
Nice. Very nice. Yeah, so I can see where Ryan Carr's coming from. You know, they've still got a season to finish off and embarrassment of a wooden spoon to try and avoid. So, you know, lift your standards everywhere, I'd say.
Yeah, I agree. It just feels weird that like they've got a guy that says I don't want to be there anymore, and they're like, no, you have to stay. And then the coach is out saying, if you don't want to be here, just go. It's like two different arguments. But yeah, you're gonna be trying to do whatever you can to try to get some resemblance of a performance out of this this club right now.
Yeah.
Right, moving from one disaster club to another, with all eyes on Freddie Fittler's coaching role at New South Wales, Paul Gallen, Andrew Johns, Craig Bellamy, and Matty Johns have all come out and advised that they're not interested in becoming coach if Fittler's let go. You're the New South Walesman here. It seems like no one wants this job. So do you think that means Fittler's going to be continuing on, win or loss this next week?
You know what? I think there's probably a good chance that he might. I don't know if a clean sweep changes that, but tell me who you think would fill that void if all those net players, all those potential coaches you listed have ruled themselves out. I would welcome Bellamy back for another shot at it. He's done it once before, but we know his credentials as a coach. If he doesn't want it, I'm struggling to think of any other coaches who I'd want to put in Fittler's place.
Yeah, I think the week you weren't on the show, you asked that question to me, and I couldn't think of anyone. I think I did. So I think the only name I put up was really Bellamy. You've got guys like Ricky Stewart, but they've already said they want a coach that isn't coaching in NRL.
It's like Stephen Kearney, like Simon says.
Yeah, I would love that, to be honest. If it keeps Queensland winning, I'm all for it. But yeah, I don't know. It seems we'll go into it more when we talk about the team namings. But yeah, we'll move on. It's still Origin. The NRL are apparently reviewing the Origin schedule at the end of the season, but they don't really have a say because Channel 9 calls the shots. I think I was talking with someone yesterday saying, like, I can't think of another sports competition that bastardizes its own product for the sake of a separate exhibition. Like all the other sports in the world, when they want to do these clashes, they shut their competition down.
Yeah.
But the NRL is the only one that seems to try to deliver a less entertaining product for the sake of a game, which isn't that exciting anymore. As a biased Kiwi that doesn't really care who wins or loses. Yeah, it just seems weird. I don't know how they make it better, but when you have a team that loses like 6 or 7 players to Origin, effectively sometimes for 2 weeks, it as a paying member of that club, are you that interested in watching the reserves all playing for 2 weeks? I don't know. We, as Warriors fans, don't have to worry about that because our players don't normally get picked. So, yeah, what's your take? Do you think Nine will make any changes? I assume they're not that happy that it's a dead rubber, but
yeah,
that's the risk of sport. You don't know what's going to happen.
I don't know. What are your options really? I mean, having a rep break and just playing the games in consecutive weeks, maybe, and bring forward the start of the season. I know Super Rugby starts around February, so there's an option. But yeah, I can see from the point of view of wanting to stop the competition to play the rep footy or have the rep footy outside of the season, because from the NRL club's standpoint, we're okay for the team we support, but if you support a Broncos or
Panthers
yeah, I mean, you can say Panthers, but they still seem to win somehow. But
yeah,
but you're not seeing your superstars play for a few games in the middle of the season there. So
yeah. I think I've said it multiple times on the show. I still think like an international window break where you do Origin, and then while you're doing Origin, you stop NRL, but you pull in the Kiwis, Tonga.
Yeah, that's the ideal.
I know New South Wales has the issue that if they bring out Samoa, will some of their players decide not to play? You'd normally say no, but at the moment, would you rather have a chance of winning as Samoa or just lose as New South Wales? I don't know. I don't know what it is.
One pays significantly more.
That's true. Well, then that's another case. If they sorted out the international payments to be a bit more competitive with Origin, but yeah, I think it will just be the same. I think we'll hear at the end of the year that the status quo will remain. So when that happens, we'll talk about it. Interesting little bit of news. With the sacking of Justin Holbrook that we discussed last week, it's believed that David Fifita and Big Tino had clauses in their contract which have made them free agents at their sacking, at the sacking of the coach. The Titans CEO would not comment on the rumor, basically saying like the contracts are private between club and player. Apparently, the Raiders have already reached out to David Fifita again and increased their offer. So it'd be interesting to see. Apparently, if you believe the rumors, one of the big reasons Fifita remained at Gold Coast was because of Holbrook. So if Holbrook's not there, potentially, he might give up that horrible living conditions of Gold Coast for the mighty sunny tropics of Canberra. We'll see what happens. But what's your take on that? It's an interesting. Do you think that if they obviously would have known that clauses in that contract, you think that potentially would have been something that would have kept Holbrook around if two of your better players potentially could walk out the front door?
Yeah, I mean, potentially, but they still struggle for consistent results even with those two players there anyway. So
true.
Maybe they're looking at it from a point of view of trying to get a coach that's going to change something in their culture. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what develops out of that. I'm just hoping neither of those guys ends up in a Broncos jersey.
Yeah, I don't think that will happen. But yeah, I see Jacko said he'd love the Warriors to make a big play for Tino. I know it'd be a long shot and likely don't have the cap, but worth a go. Yeah, they've tried to get him before, and he said no. But yeah, I think it'd be all about the cap space. But he'd be a nice player to have. He probably wouldn't get to play a lot for us, though. I'd expect he'd get the Warriors treatment and be suspended a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, be interesting times. We're obviously going to keep. And Simon said David needs to stay in Gold Coast. The Raiders shouldn't be burning money they don't have. Yeah, well, they got that Jack Whiten money now. Now that he's leaving. So that's the first thing I thought was the money that they've got were a bit. And Paul's just said he noticed some calls were questionable for the weekend at the Warriors game. Don't even get that started, Paul.
That's standard, Paul. That's standard.
That's just normal. That's
par for the course.
But yeah, segueing from some questionable calls, the referee that made those calls has been named the official for Origin Game 3 next week. He's been rewarded. So Ashley Klein getting the Origin. There was a lot of complaints about him in the last Origin, so I was surprised he got the call up again, but congrats, I guess. What's your take on Ashley Klein getting the gig for Origin, Richie?
Who else would you give it to, really?
Ziggy.
They all make mistakes, mate. It's just part of being a ref. We've got such a ref bashing culture nowadays, and we're a part of it. I know. But yeah,
do you want me to just screenshot some of the texts I get from you during games?
Hey, I'll admit we're part of it. But yeah, who else? Yeah, I don't know. I guess you could say he's one of the better ones. When you look at the quality overall,
one of the better of a bad bunch.
Yeah.
I don't think there were too many bad calls in the Warriors game. Paul's just being, one-eyed Warriors supporter now. There were still a few bad ones, but there was some decent, like tricky calls that he had to make. That watching back on replays, live and in the moment, I thought he was wrong, but looking back, I was like, oh no, he got it. But yeah, it's probably more the miss. Oh, and Paul's just coming. He was thinking about the card. Yeah, the card was rubbish. That we can talk about that when we review the game. You're taking me off script. Before we get into the last big bit of news that kind of came out today, Tommy Turbo is back in hospital again, Richie. He suffered an infection after his pec surgery. Poor kid can't catch a break. Hopefully he gets through that. But what's your take? Is he cursed or what?
There's something there, mate. I don't know. Let's review his training regime and his vitamins and make sure he's drinking enough milk. I don't know. He keeps breaking. He might be just one of those guys. We had one, Ben Henry, had to retire early.
Yeah.
We've seen it with a number of players. They just get unlucky. So
Nathaniel Roach.
Yeah, Nathaniel Roach. I hope Tommy Turbo finds an injury-free back end of his career, because he deserves it. He's had a tough go of things.
I'd like to see him just get through one season. That's what I'm looking for. One full season. But yeah, last bit of news before we get into Origin signings and whatnot. The battle of the RLPA agreement has taken another turn today, with the NRL players advising that they're not going to take part in media from tomorrow. That includes pre-match interviews, post-match interviews, and so on and so forth. There is some asterisks on it. They'll continue to do media for their club when required, and will be open to interviews from Monday to Wednesday unless it's an Origin week. This is all basically stemming from the NRL's staunch approach to not adjust the deal they've got on the table. So the NRL said we're not budging, so now the NRL players want to get away from the media. Some players like Jerome Luai and that, it's probably better that they don't anyway.
Yeah, that's true.
But what's your take on it? I feel like the players are pushing and doing all this stuff. I don't think they're going to get anywhere. I think the NRL won't budge because they don't need to. The NRL players have been threatening since before the season started on all the stuff they were going to do. They haven't done anything. The season's almost finished. So they've already shown the NRL that they're still going to go out there and play and do everything that the NRL want them to do. So they really needed to come out and do a we're not playing type approach right from the start, and they may have got some traction. But what's your take? I see Jacko's mentioned that Clint Newton's Harley, a top negotiator, is way out of his depth. Yeah, this is way too big a thing they're trying to do. for him to handle, in my opinion. But it makes for interesting reading.
Yeah, it's an interesting play on the RLPA's part. I guess they know the media that the players do. The players in the NRL are quite accessible, pre, post game, during the game, and I guess their thinking is that enhances the NRL's TV product a lot. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see during the game what their TV experience is like without all of that extra stuff.
Yeah, and Simon's got a message here saying, I say, from my understanding, Peter V'landys is not happy with the free-to-air coverage of the NRL when it comes to promotions with free-to-air channels. Yeah, there's a whole lot there. I can't stand Peter V'landys myself, so he does seem like the type of guy that's not going to budge because he doesn't need to. And unfortunately, the NRL's an environment where there's a new star every year. So it's not like you're pinning all your hopes on like the top 10 players of the NRL, and if they're not there, the competition's falling apart. We've seen some big guys like Cam Smith and all that retire, and we don't really talk about them anymore because there's all these other players. It's the nature of the beast. It's a big competition. If a player disappears, a new one takes their place. It's harsh but true. Players are all cogs in the big machine here, and when one gets a bit squeaky, you remove it, put a new one in, and it keeps going like normal. Sucks for the players, but it's the nature of business, unfortunately. As a little cog in a big machine myself, I know. So yeah, it is what it is. But that was really all the news I had, Richie. So we may as well get into the Origin teams that were announced. I'll see if Paul's left us. I'll see if I can figure out how to do this properly. Did that work?
Well done.
It worked like a boss. So I'll let you rattle off the losing team squad, and then I'll talk about Queensland.
Right, here we go. James Tedesco is fullback and captain still. Brian To'o, Josh Adokar on the wings, Stephen Crichton, and Bradman Best earns selection. Much talked about call, that one. Cody Walker gets a recall in place of Jerome Luai. Mitch Moses will be the halfback. Jake Trebojevic has been named to return alongside Regan Campbell-Gillard in the front row. Damien Cook, hooker. Liam Martin, Keon Kalormatangi, edge back rowers, and Cam Murray, the lock this time around. Isaiah Yeo, Jacob Saifidi, Reece Robson, Clint Gutherson, Scotty Drinkwater, and Spencer Lenu. So there's a few new caps in there.
Yeah. And then for Queensland, we've got AJ Brimson replacing Walshy at fullback, Xavier Coates and Murray Talangi on the wings, Valentine Holmes and the hammer in the centres, Munster and Cherry Evans in the halves, Ruben Cotter and Big Tino front row with Harry Grant at hook, Fafita and Jeremiah Nanai at second row, Pat Carrigan at lock. Then we've got Ben Hunt, Lindsay Collins, Fotoweka, and Corey Horsburgh, interchanged with Tommy Dearden and Jermaine Hopgood as the extendeds. So pretty close to what they played in last time, Richie. A few new ones in. But yeah, I guess all the talk has been about New South Wales. We kind of talked about it last time, that we kind of expected a few changes just due to, got to throw darts at the board and see what sticks in this type of environment. It's not a bad team within reason. There is a few questionable calls, like having Gutho and Reece Robson on the bench.
Yeah.
Seems a bit counterintuitive. I'm biased. I was happy to see Gutho get a call up because it's like that's another Eel player that won't be playing this week.
Yeah.
So,
sure. From a New South Wales point of view, there's things I do like about it and things I don't like about it. I'm a fan of the way Keon Kalormatangi plays in the back row, and I wanted to see him get a shot. He had his injury troubles earlier on. Bradman Best is an interesting one. I think there's probably other people I would have looked at before him, but that is what it is. I like that they've put Scott Drinkwater and Gutherson in the team because they're in really good form. I just might have had one of them starting in place of Tedesco, who's really not in good form.
Yeah.
And I like Murray, so I like that they've moved a little bit away from the Panthers' monopoly on the starting lineup. And I think Cody Walker's earned another shot. He's been playing really well for a couple of years now. So
yeah, and I think the way he played in the weekend was definitely a well-worthy indicator of him deserving a call-up. And Jacko, he's mentioned that Brandy and Fittler have lost the plot and they've got very grumpy and defensive during interviews. Watching Alexander getting questioned about Bradman Best was actually quite entertaining because he was defensive, but he couldn't really give the reason why he was selected because they were kind of questioning, saying, he had one good game against a less than great team, and then he gets the call up, and he was saying like, no, it wasn't just because of one game. But to be honest, he hasn't really, set the world alight. There was rumors not even that long ago that Knights were trying to get rid of him.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. Hopefully they go well and it's actually competitive. I could think of nothing worse than them getting smashed at home in a dead rubber contest. And we've seen it when it's the other way, when it's a dead rubber and Queensland are fighting back. They either win that third one or they're really competitive. So hopefully for the game's sake, it's a competitive game, but Queensland should still win. So
yeah, I think so.
So we'll see if I can. Oh, look at that. I'm almost learning how to do this on my own. We'll go into signings. There was only one, and then we got some quick little updates today. So the bigger one was the Bulldogs have signed Toby Sexton from the Titans, effective immediately until the end of 2024. Not a handy pickup, I think. Toby Sexton, he's not, the greatest player on the planet, but I think he definitely is a lot better than what they've got in their half stocks at the moment. And they need help there. Matt Burton isn't a leading half, so he kind of needs someone that can take some of the responsibility off him. I think a handy pickup for them there. What's your thoughts on little Toby?
Yeah, handy, I think, is a good word. I don't think it's going to be a turn the club's fortunes around kind of signing. If, say, for instance, if they somehow landed a Ben Hunt or something like that, that would have been a game changer signing. But having watched the Dogs on the weekend, something needs to happen.
Yeah. And then the last two were just extensions. The Broncos have extended Marty Tapau for another year. So well done for him. He's been playing reasonably well for the Broncos. And then the Raiders have extended Sebastian Chris until the end of 2027. And I think he's been doing very well for them. So deserved there. And then injuries. We don't really have that many. Jeremy Marshall-King, unfortunately, is still having issues with his shoulder and is touch and go to play. Wayne Bennett basically said that he thinks they might be without him for the rest of the year, which is a massive loss. I didn't do my research, so as normal. They have named him this week, so we'll see what happens if he actually plays or not. But if he is out for the season, massive loss for the Dolphins there. But we also had head knocks for Felice Kafusi, Jake Turpin, Will Warbrick, and Basami Saulo. But due to multiple buys, the only teams that will be affected are the Dolphins and Raiders. And then Alessi Katoa from the Storm had surgery on his eye, and he will miss another 3 to 4 weeks. So I think out of all of that, really the biggest one is still Jeremy. So
yeah, definitely.
Then Naughty Boy Corner. We got a big one this week, Richie. Only 2 bans due to on-field incidents. So Dale Finucane from Sharks has got 2 weeks for a grade 1 dangerous throw, and Alex Twile has got 1 week for a grade 2 dangerous contact. But we also had Dylan Brown and Josh Curran. So we didn't really cover what happened with these guys until we kind of decided behind closed doors we'd wait until the NRL had stepped in and made a plan. So Dylan Brown's he's received a backdated 7-game ban and a $40,000 fine by the NRL Integrity Unit after pleading guilty to 2 charges of touching a woman without consent. I think it was sexual touching or something they called it. Got to be careful with the words, because of all the ad money we get on this show, Richie.
Yeah.
And Josh Curran's received a backdated 2-game ban and a $10,000 fine by the Integrity Unit after pleading guilty for assaulting a teenager at a nightclub last year. So Dylan Brown, I think he's got like 2 or 3 games of the ban left, and Curran's got 1 left. What's your take on all that? I don't know if we can argue if the bans are long enough and what have you for what it is, but yeah, I think that's more for the Dylan Brown one than the Curran one. I think Curran's is fine. I would have been happy with no bans for Curran.
Yeah, me too, being a Warriors supporter, but
yeah,
I can understand it. Having had to go to court and being involved in a scuffle there with which we'll know about. But yeah, Dylan Brown, you'd think that would be, that's a fairly serious one and quite high profile as well. So 7 games, I think he'd happily take that on the chin. I almost think it could have been a little bit more.
Yeah, I think before that was announced, I think a lot of people were anticipating it could have been an end of season type deal. So yeah, I think he'll be very happy with 7. But it means he's not playing against the Warriors, so that's all I really was concerned about.
Yeah.
That was really all the news we had. As normal, we've gone almost our whole show length on news. We'll blame it on Paul. But we may as well get into we've got Mikey first. He said Curran set up big time. Yeah. I still question why a 16-year-old was in a nightclub at that time of night myself. But yeah,
and by the sounds of things, harassing him, filming him, and that kind of stuff. It's you would want to slap some sense into somebody like that, wouldn't you?
So you only do that if you're like me and the same size as the players. If you're a little 16-year-old kid, you don't want to be doing it. But we'll move into the round. It might be reasonably quick due to how many bloody blowouts we had. But we'll kick off first with Thursday night's game with the Sharks defeating the Dragons 52-16.
Quick for you, mate. You don't need to read out all these try scores. 9 tries to 3. The Sharks' try scorers were Nico Hines, Britton Nakora, Jesse Ramian, Tom Hazelton, Ronaldo Mulatalo, William Kennedy, Siosifas Talakai, Ronaldo Mulatalo again, and Britton Nakora again. So they shared the love around there. 3 tries for the Dragons, Ravalawa, Tautau Monga, and Tyrell Sloan.
Yeah. Short and sweet here. I basically had it was a training run for the Sharks. They scored at a relative frequent pace. However, if you want to look at it a bit more critically, they need to watch their errors and discipline when facing top opposition.
Yeah, very much what you said, just worded slightly differently, I guess. The result I was expecting, the Sharks ran through the Dragons with relative ease, so I was expecting that much. It's the challenge for the Sharks is let's see them do this against a top 8 team now.
Yeah. And your thoughts on the Dragons?
I think your wooden spoon prediction for the Dragons is getting more and more solid as the weeks pass. They're pretty much a team you can bank on taking the 2 points away from at this point of the season. So as Ryan Carr said, they better keep their standards up.
Yeah. To be honest, I feel like it's them and Tigers, and who concedes more points is going to get the the wooden spoon. But yeah, it's more of the same from the Dragons team. Their heart doesn't look in it, and it's a long road ahead. They conceded 100 points in 2 weeks, which, you know, is not great. But yeah, loving it big time. So who is your player to stand out?
It's pretty hard to look past their main man when they're performing like that. Nico Hines, few try assists, 8 from 9 off the boot. Pretty sound day out.
Yeah, I had the same. I think some of his kicks were a bit off early on, but I think once he got into the groove, he was just having a blinder. Next game, Friday, Rabbitohs 28, Warriors 6.
Yeah. Unfortunate one. 5 tries to 1. Alex Johnston with a double, Cam Murray, Tyrone Munro on debut, and Blake Taff. 1 try for the Warriors, Marcelo Montoya.
Yeah. Worst performance of the year for the Warriors for me. Real off night with plenty of errors. And they either had a game plan that didn't work or they didn't stick to what Webby told them. Webby kind of said in post-match that they weren't doing what they had their game plan. But the way, I think it's a bit of both. I think his idea of what they should be able to do out there was what suitable for wet weather. They're getting a reputation in my eyes as a team that can't play in the wet, which is ironic for a team that probably trains in the rain more than any other team in the comp. Just it's horrible timing for basically every player in the team to have their worst game of the year, but possibly perfect timing for a wake-up call.
For me, obviously, a really unfortunate loss from the boys. That's the second time this year in really bad conditions where we haven't looked good.
Sit in both of them.
I know, mate. I know. I feel sorry for you there, but yeah, that's the second time this year in bad conditions where, you know, we just didn't look good in those conditions. So I think tactically we weren't as good in the conditions as Souths were, and our completions were well down and where they needed to be. I just hope we take this game and treat it as a good lesson for the rest of the year.
Yeah, there was before we move on to the Rabbits, there was like towards the end, watching them go out to the edges in weather where, you know, all you have to do, it's very easy to drag someone in that weather, and they keep going up the edges and getting dragged over the sidelines when they really needed to just go up the middle.
Yeah, infuriating.
But your thoughts on the Rabbits?
I thought they were class, to be honest. They played the conditions perfectly, near error free, and in conditions like that is remarkable. I thought their kicking game was really good, executed their chances beautifully. It's just a really unfortunate time for them to return to that kind of form if you're a Warriors fan.
They've been under the pump recently, the Rabbits, but they played a near perfect game in horrible conditions. The lowest error rate for them this season, and if you guys have watched the show enough this year, all I do is bitch and complain about the Rabbits error rate.
It's karma for you saying that.
The one night they decide to, I think they had 3 errors, and only one of those errors was a drop ball, which, you know, they're usually averaging between 10 and 14 errors a game in beautiful weather. So maybe they just need to play in wet weather all the time and their hands will be better. But to be brutally honest, they just bullied the Warriors throughout the contest and, played thoroughly well. A very well-deserved win. I'm very disappointed in it as a Warriors fan, but I didn't leave that match going, well, you know, the Rabbits were lucky here. They completely outplayed them, in my opinion. Not as doom. It was very doom and gloom walking away, partly because of the conditions and I couldn't feel my hands. But I think after watching it again at home, I got some more positives out of it, knowing that it's a blip, not something that's going to set in for the Warriors, hopefully. But we'll see when we talk about the game this week on next week's show. But your player to stand out?
I went with Cody Walker. I just thought some of the things he did in the wet. I think he threw one pass, which was a bit off that I remember, but kicking game, I thought South's short kicking game in general, and those conditions are really good. It had us under all sorts of pressure, and I thought he was executing some of those really well.
Yeah, I would have gone with him too, but I feel like I'm picking halves too much. So I went with Cam Murray. Thought Cam Murray, like a big difference between the two sides was that the pack dominated. The Rabbits pack dominated the Warriors one, and Cam Murray is the key man you go to for getting that forward pack humming. So I went with him. He had some great stats too, but thoroughly well deserved, and we will never talk of this game again. So
please.
Let's go on to the next Friday night game. Panthers defeating the Storm 34-16.
Yeah, the battle of two teams I really don't like. So, happy one way, but kind of feel indifferent at the same time. 6 tries to 2. Stephen Crichton, Isaac Tungo grabbed 2. Liam Martin, Zach Hosking, and Brian To'o. 2 tries for the Storm. They were the first 2 tries of the game. Harry Grant and Nelson Osofo-Solomona, which was a little bit of a dodgy try.
Yeah, so I missed this game live because I was coming back from the Warriors game, but I watched it the next day, and it was a slow start for the Panthers, but they made the most of the opportunities they were given by the Storm. Doesn't matter who's missing from this team. You just know the Panthers are always going to be competitive, so you can't give them those extra opportunities. But what's your take on Penrith?
Yes, like I said before, slow out of the gates with Melbourne getting the first 2 tries. But once they clicked, it was classic Panthers. Such a classy professional team. Missing players still perform like that. I have to tip my hat to them as much as I dislike them.
Yeah, and your take on the Storm?
Really good start. Looked like world beaters in the first sort of 15 minutes there. But I felt like the longer the game went on, the less we saw from them, and the Panthers sort of just took over from there. So, the start of the match is kind of like, wow, this is the Storm we all know. And then they give you a reminder that they're, from time to time this year, they're not quite where they traditionally are.
Yeah, it's the Storm. I thought that first 20 minutes was the team that I predicted to win, and then they screwed me over. I got both games wrong Friday night, but Jacko mentioned before I talk about the Storm. Jacko mentioned the Panthers look the goods. They're odds on for a 3-peat premiership. Yeah, to be honest, I still think there's other teams that could do the job, but if you're not putting money on the Panthers, you're not betting wisely, really. They just know how to win. They got that culture right now. But the Storm, they showed up in the first half, as you said, that first 20 minutes type thing. But the lack of respect for the ball in the second ruined any chances they had at getting the win. A performance like this may have seen them beat several other teams, but not the defending champs. Your player, I think we picked the same one this time.
Yeah, I think he was. Yeah, Isaac Tungo. I thought he stood out quite clearly.
Yeah,
couple tries looked devastating all night.
Yeah, so I picked Tungo as well. First game on Saturday, the game we're all looking to watch to see what would happen in the second half. The Raiders defeating the Titans 26-22.
And it was very close, this one. 4 tries apiece. Potentially should have been 5 to the Titans. For the Raiders, Albert Hopewade, Sebastian Chris, Matt Timoko, and Hudson Young. For the Titans, David Fafita with 1, probably should have been 2. Jojo Fafita, Khan Pereira, and Faisal Malawi were the try scorers.
Yeah, so close match like we anticipated, but a try and penalty goal in the final 10 minutes proved the difference for Canberra. Big effort from their pack helped them take control. Confidence boosting win, I think, for Canberra, but with 11 penalties conceded, they need to work on their discipline as it may cost them next time. Your take on Canberra?
I thought they made a good start, but as they do, they let the opposition back into the game a lot of the time. So the Titans made their way back into the match. Long range try from Matt Timoko, and sort of strange circumstances where Khan Pereira was going for a try down one end and dropped the ball in the end goal, and Titans all sort of stopped, and then Matt Timoko ran the length. That was kind of a turning point in the match, and helped Canberra take control back before having to hold off a late fight back from the Titans.
Yeah. Your thoughts on the Titans, though?
I thought they were competitive here. I think they have every right to feel upset with one of David Fafita's, which should have been a try, having that ruled no try. I thought he was just going for the ball, and he was kind of blocked off the ball. But I think they kept fighting the whole match and weren't far off a result in Canberra, which is always hard. Both teams scored 2 tries in the second half, so
it's a win for both of them in my eyes.
Yeah, they at least showed something in the second half, these teams.
Yeah, and Jacko mentioned the Titans were robbed by the bunker. Imagine if that was us being the Warriors. Yeah, so I look at it that way. I looked at the call and it could go either way, but I'm not really that fussed. If it was the Warriors in that situation, though, I know what my opinion would be. So, yeah, I think it was a bit hard done by, but, there's not many teams out there that can't say they were hard done by and a call by the bunker.
For me, it looked like Jamal Fogarty was just trying to run in his line and prevent him from chasing the ball.
I still think that's fine, though, as well. If you're going for the ball in the end goal, but yeah, I don't know.
Fafita's a big bloke. He just ran through him.
Yeah,
should have been a try.
Should have been a try. But yeah, Titans, as you just said, they were up for this match, and they showed a better second half this time. They made 11 errors though, which didn't help them. And while they hit on the penalty count, it was the poor timing. Defense still needs a lot of work, and a lot of woulda, coulda, shoulda with the bunker decision, unfortunately. But yeah, I think they'll be a bit more confident that they showed some heart in that second half. So hopefully that spurs them on to some better performances. But your player to stand out?
I went for David Fafita. I grabbed someone on the losing team this time around.
How could you? He cost them the game with that muff try, mate.
I don't think that's his fault. Yeah, I just like what I see from him this year. And I've hung enough crap on him the past couple of seasons. I've got to give him his due when I see him playing the way he's playing.
He's flat track bully. He's the forward version of Mitch Moses, mate.
Okay.
No, he had a great game. But I went with Joseph Tapine. Think he was just a beast in the middle of the park for the Raiders. And he just tunes out the meters, which is exactly what you're paying him for. Yeah. So, thought it was a good showing from him. And hopefully one day it'd be great if we could lure him home. But we'll move on to the next game. Cowboys defeating the Tigers 74-0, Richie.
Wow.
I'll just have a nap while you go through all the try scores.
Yeah, 13 tries, all to the one team. Tom Dead and Semi Valame, Luciano Leilua, Scott Drinkwater ×2, I believe. Murray Taulagi ×3, Valentine Holmes ×2, Semi Valame got another, Jeremiah Nanai, Jordan McLean. I may have missed somebody there. I don't think I did, but wow. 13 tries to 0.
Yeah, so Cowboys, their newfound form continues. Hard to gauge due to their opposition, but it was an amazing attacking display that has shot them right up into top 8 contention. We said they were still a chance, but they're knocking on the door now. Some of those current top 8 teams will be watching over their shoulders nervously about this Cowboys outfit. Your take on the Cowboys? Yeah,
I'm brilliant. Obviously, I'm quite mad with the Tigers for letting it get that many, because that's quite the season turning result potentially. The kind of good that 74 points to 0 does for your points differential in a tight competition. That's done the Cowboys a massive favor. But yeah, training runs.
It was only a couple of weeks ago where the Tigers put 66 on the Cowboys.
Yeah, Yeah, really weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, training run, obviously brilliant attacking displays throughout the whole team. I thought particularly from Drinkwater and Tommy Dearden, but everyone was in a mood in this game.
Mm. And you probably won't have to go for long, but your thoughts on the Tigers?
Yeah, awful, pitiful. You could come up with quite a few words. But yeah, no attack, non-existent defense. I can see them in a shootout for the wooden spoon with the Dragons.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, yeah, basically the same. 16 errors they made, next to no possession and no points. Not much more you can really say in a dark day for the Tigers. Your player of the day.
You could have picked a few. For me, the two standouts were Drinkwater and Dearden. I went Dearden because I thought you might go Drinkwater. So
Yeah,
both of them, lots of boatload of try assists, tries. They were both brilliant.
Yeah, Drinkwater I went with. He had 5 try assists and scored 2 tries himself. So yeah, great day out for everyone really. I don't think you could pick anyone there that had an off night. So
Yeah.
Well done. Next game, Broncos defeating the Dolphins 24-16. And while we're talking about it, Simon, if you send us your picks, because Paul's not here, so I have to write them down.
Yep. So this one was 5-3. The Broncos, Sal and Cobbo grabbed a hat trick. Herbie Farnworth grabbed 2. For the Dolphins, Cody Nikarima, Valence Tefare, and Jeremy Marshall King were the try scorers.
Yeah, so it was a closer scoreline than I thought it would be, but it felt like the Broncos were not really struggling. Their forwards are in the middle of the park, and with a live wire like Sal and Cobbo out there, you just knew that the Broncos were like one pass away from crossing the try line again. We'll survive without Reece Walsh with ease, I think.
Yeah.
I see Caden's asked us a question, or asked me a question, which we'll answer in the question section, Caden. So I'll start it. So yeah, you go back. Sorry, Broncos.
Yeah, I thought it was quite an entertaining game. Good, strong rivalry match between the two Brisbane sides. It's really good for the Broncos to bag the result, even missing Walsh, Flegler, and Jordan Ricky, who have all been really, really good for them this year. Some amazing individual brilliance from Sal and Cobbo helped seal the result late in the game.
Yeah, your thoughts on the Dolphins?
Much better fight this week from the Dolphins, who have had a tough month and a bit. I thought this was a much better showing from them this week. Unfortunately for them, still no result though, and they're on a bit of a slide now. So
yeah. The Dolphins were more competitive than I expected. They looked more composed on attack with Sean O'Sullivan back, and Conrad Harrell 2.0 had another solid match. But the Dolphins, they just couldn't last the 80, but they showed heart. I know it's great to praise that, but you want to come away with the win. But, it's a step in the right direction, I think. It wasn't like they were playing a bottom 8 or bottom 9 team here. They were playing, a top 4 team and, competed. So, well done on that. Your player to stand out.
Oh, I put Sal and Cobbo. 3 tries. The chip and chase one where there was just nothing on, and that one really changed the game. The Dolphins were really in it until then. I thought he was just doing things that not a lot of players can do, and Cobbo's shown he can do that sort of thing.
Yeah, I went to my usual bag of tricks and back to prop. I went with Payne Haas. He had 224 meters in 67 minutes, and think helped set a platform for guys like Cobbo to get all the glory out the back. Well done on him. Next game, another one that might be quick. Knights defeating the Bulldogs 66-0.
Yeah, this one was only 11 tries to 0, so not quite the 13 the Cowboys got, but So the Knights' try scorers were Jackson Hastings with 2, Bradman Best with 3, Lachlan Fitzgibbon, Phoenix Crossland, Kurt Mann, Greg Marju, Inari Tuala. Crossland grabbed a second.
Yeah, so kind of rinse and repeat what we just talked about not that long ago. But yeah, Knights didn't really have anyone to play against here. But to their credit, they didn't let the foot off. They didn't relax and just go, okay, we've got this in the bag. Let's just, have a nice afternoon. The Knights, they'll hope to build on this effort, although I don't think the rest of their matches will be this easy.
Agreed. Definitely agreed. They looked unstoppable, the Knights, in this game. I certainly didn't see the scoreline coming. But the Knights really made the doggies pay for not turning up to the tune of 11 tries to 0. So it doesn't get a lot more comprehensive than that. Only really the game a couple before it. But yeah, if you're the Knights, you're pretty pleased with that.
Yeah, and your take on the doggies?
Can almost repeat what I said about the Tigers. Terrible showing from them, which earned them a stern booing from their home fans. Don't really want to encourage that sort of thing, but I think it was almost deserved.
Yeah. Same for me, really. Rinse and repeat what I said about the Tigers. Too many errors, not enough ball. Doggies were never meant to be this bad, though, Richie. And how they got here, I don't know. Gould, he apparently has a plan, but doesn't appear to be working. They'll need a massive bounce back in 2024, but this year's over. I know they've got some good players coming in next year, but I don't know. I personally, before the season started, had them above the Warriors performance-wise on what we saw. And the fact that they are, fighting it out with the Dragons and Tigers for worst team in the comp. It's not what you're paying all that money for when you got supposedly the best coach from Penrith as well. I don't know. I just went over what I talked about the Tigers with it. But shocking display. They should be embarrassed. But your player, I know we picked the same this time. We did better. We haven't picked the same player in every game like we did last week. Bradman
Best, 3 tries. If you ask some people in the media circles, he played his way into a rep team off the back of this great performance. So, but he was very good.
I went with him too. It was back to his damaging self that we got used to seeing last season, admittedly against paper-thin defense, so it made everyone look like a champion, but give him credit where it's due. I thought he played really well. But that takes us to the last game of the round. Seagulls defeating Roosters 18-16. Spoilers, this was the difference between you, me, and Simon in our picking, because you backed the Roosters. Yet again, the Roosters let you down.
I hate them. Stupid Roosters.
You got to stop picking them, mate.
This one was 3 tries each, so I'm going to blame Sandon Smith for this one, missing a kick. Daly Cherry Evans had 2 tries. Ben Travojevic had the 3rd for Manly. The Roosters' try scorers were Junior Ponga, James Tedesco, Joey Manu.
So at least we ended the round with a tight contest. Seagulls made too many errors, but they pressed the Roosters' defense all day. Big effort from the forwards allowed DCE to get some strong performances from his back line, and they built pressure, which made it almost inevitable that the match-winning try was coming.
Yeah, most definitely. It was a good result for the Seagulls, picking up the win here against the struggling Roosters. I thought they were guided over the line well by their leader, DCE, who just continues to have a really good year, and particularly in rep jersey. But he's when Manly are playing well, he's always at the heart of it. So Yeah, good result for them.
Yeah, and your take on your predicted premiers, the Roosters?
I thought it was another kick in the guts result for the Roosters. It's really hard to see them featuring in the top 8 this year, which is quite remarkable to think about. If you look at their roster on paper and look at where they have been for a few years, unless they can find some sort of turnaround really quickly, I think it's almost time to start drawing a line through them.
Yeah, I think so. Roosters, though, to their credit, they at least showed up this week. They've been dreadful for most of the season and started out, but they're starting to look like an NRL side again. However, they missed 46 tackles and conceded 8 penalties, which basically you can eliminate yourself from winning just on those 2 stats alone. As you said, though, a lot of work's been done at this club, and I think some honest conversations need to be made. Team of champions doesn't beat a champion team, just that cliche. That kind of feels like what they got. They're doing like the opposite of Moneyball. They're just going for all the big names and hoping that they'll work, but that's not how footy works. Your player of the day, I think we picked the same one to end the round.
DCE, very good again. A couple of tries, led the team around really well.
Yeah, definitely. I went with him too. Thought it was a great showing from him. So that was the round. So we'll go into our picks. If I can get it up. Yeah, look at that. So Simon got 6 out of 8, only got 2 wrong, and is leading 86 out of 136. I got 6 out of 8 as well, getting the Warriors Storm game wrong. And I'm 82 out of 136. And Richie, you let us down again with 5 out of 8. Sitting behind dead last, 79 out of 136. And before we go into the ladder, Jacko said Chookies look like an entitled club who don't know what to do when things go wrong. I think that's a very apt description. They expect to be a top 8 team and a premiership threat all the time. There's a leak in the boat and they don't know how to plug it. Did you want to say something else about the tipping comp there, Richie? It looked like you were ready to...
Oh, yeah, no, I just like the way you added a bit of GST onto my result there, saying dead last. I'm not that far off, mate. There's still time.
Falling further and further behind. It wasn't that long ago when we were tied, and I was only second by alphabet. But I'm slowly chipping away at Simon's lead, but I think it was too big at the start when he was whooping us. But yeah, we'll move into the, if I can figure out how to do this while we're here. Look at that. The ladder. There we go. I think I did top 8 last week, didn't I?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you did.
Yeah, so you do top 8 and I'll do bottom 9.
Okay, Penrith and Brisbane, still 1 and 2. Cronulla have moved up to 3rd. Melbourne 4th. Canberra have moved up to 5th. Parramatta up to 6th. Rabbitohs up to 7th. Unfortunately for us, that result on the weekend has moved us down to 8th, right on the edge there.
Yeah. And then the bottom 9, we got the Cowboys shot all the way up to 9th. Titans moved down to 10th. Manly to 11th. Dolphins are 12th. Roosters are 13th. Knights are 14th. Bulldogs are 15th. Dragons have gone up to 16th. And then the Tigers have gone to 17th due to the points differential. Still real tight. Scarily tight for looking at the where the Warriors are placed right now. It is really. I think there was. I think it was Jacko earlier on made a comment. I'll see if I can find it again. Here it is. Cows are a good chance of making the 8. They just can't afford a couple of off games, which is exactly what we're seeing here. The Warriors had an off game and went all the way down to 8th, where, if they had won that, they'd be, 5th or 6th right now. So, yeah, not great, but hopefully they don't. They've only been out of the 8 1 week this year. So hopefully it stays that way. But we'll move into questions. We really only have one question from the group that we hadn't answered already, and that was from Caden. He said, here and now, who wins in a race to the bottom between the Dragons and Tigers? Dragons.
I honestly think the Tigers will really struggle, particularly without Epi Coruscant and Luke Brooks for a while. They, I think they're on a course for the bottom spot.
Yeah, so I'm looking. They got the Dragons have the Raiders this week. Then they have a bye. Then they have the Tigers, which you basically say that's going to be the decider.
Could be
whoever wins that game. Then they have Manly. Then they have the Eels. Then they have the Rabbits. Then they have the Storm. Then they have the Warriors. Then the Knights. So that's not a great run for the Dragons. I could honestly say maybe they win the game against the Tigers and that's it. And then looking at the Tigers, this is entertaining watching me scroll. But they have the Sharks this week. Then they have the Knights.
Loss.
Then they have that Dragons game.
Probably loss.
Then they have the Rabbits. Then they have the Raiders. Then they have the Warriors. Then they have the Dolphins. Then they have the Roosters. And then they have the Manly. So effectively, I could say the Tigers and the Dragons lose every game left, bar whoever wins the game when they play each other.
It could be that way. Yeah.
I think, they could surprise us. You never know. It's just really tight. The Tigers have beaten the Panthers. I'll keep going back to that. The Dragons. Who did the Dragons upset someone too? The Rabbits. The Dragons beat the Rabbits. So do they have another one like that in the tank? I don't think so.
I think the Dragons are more likely to surprise someone than the Tigers without a couple of their best players.
Without Api in that, yeah. So, your safe money's probably on the Tigers to get the spoon, but I hate those Dragons, so I'm going to stick with that. I'll die on that little claim. So we'll go with your question first.
Yep. So when you see games as one-sided as we saw on the weekend, and a couple of teams still struggling to pick up wins, do you still think the NRL expanding is viable or destined to fail?
I still think it's viable for one more team, because we've got to remember we started the comp really well with a lot of real tight games. As the season's gone on and injuries in Origin have come into effect, we've seen some blowouts, and as the season goes on, you expect to see a bit of a divide between the good teams and the bad, which we're kind of seeing now, unfortunately. There's just some real bad teams, and the fact that we're not talking about the Dolphins, who are the new team, kind of shows that maybe it's not that bad. It's teams that have existed for a while that are struggling. And that's not down to, a weakening in the talent pool. It's down to, bad coaches, bad players, and bad organizations. So I think it's still fine. If they start talking about making it like a 25-team comp or something, then yeah. But I think if they move it to one more so we don't have a bye every week, I think they'll be okay. It's all how they do it and where they do it at. So yeah, I think it'll still be fine. But I wouldn't be behind them just getting rid of the Dragons, making it back to a 16-team comp. That would fix everybody's problems. You got any say on it before we move to mine?
Yeah, actually, my thoughts, even without hearing what you just said, were pretty similar. I think it would be fine provided they don't go bananas right off the bat. If it was just an extra team and it was done well, and that they got given good resource and time to come up with a good roster and a decent coach, that'd be fine. I think if you start going in with multiple new teams is when it would start getting hard. Yeah.
And Simon said, it doesn't matter if there's a couple of teams struggling at the bottom, but you do need the competition to expand. But teams are always going to have, every comp is always going to have a couple of teams that are just shit shows. It's just the nature of the beast. And Simon says he thinks 20 would be the max. Mikey asks when does it stop? And then Simon suggested replacing the Dragons with Illawarra Steelers.
Or just split them up again.
Split them up again. It's no coincidence 2 of the worst teams in the comp are ones that did the merger, because the mergers never seem to like working together over there. Balmain and West don't seem to like talking to each other, and Illawarra and St. George don't like talking to each other. And it replicates on the field. But yeah, we'll see what happens. But my question for you before we go into the next round, we've already looked at the ladder just moments ago. Who was a top 8 team you think will miss finals, and a bottom 9 team you think that will replace them?
I
can bring the ladder.
No, that's all right. I've got the ladder in my head. So the top 8, as I see it, as it is now. Okay, yeah. Yep. For context, there you go. The top 8 as it is now, I think could well be what it ends up as. But I do think North Queensland, if they retain their form, are knocking pretty hard. If they were to break their way in, the team I see dropping out of that top 8 would either be Canberra, or if, unfortunately, and I was asked this question by you a week or 2 ago, do I see them as a top 4 team? And I said I could.
Now you're going to say they're going to drop.
It's possible. If we choke it, I don't think we'll choke it, because I think our run home is good enough for us to retain our spot. So sorry, Simon. Maybe that means Canberra, in my books, might drop out if North Queensland hold their form.
Yeah, I think Cowboys are definitely going to make it. And yeah, I'm way more sitting on the fence. I think it's either the Raiders, the Eels, the Rapids, or the Warriors that miss out. It all depends. Like the next couple of weeks, the Warriors have a pretty tough run. Those other teams have difficult games in that run home as well. And it's all going to be who loses their bundle more often than they win, which is kind of how the competition works anyway. But those are the 4 teams out of that 8 that I think are more susceptible to dropping their bundle. I don't expect Penrith, Brisbane, Melbourne. Sharks are a bit more on the fence, but I think, Sharks, it depends how many top 8 teams they've got to face in the run home.
That's a good point. What's their run home?
Run home for the Sharks is...
Yeah, I'm looking it up too.
Sharks. Gotta scroll all the way down. So they have the Tigers, the Warriors,
loss,
Sea Eagles, Panthers, Rabbits, Titans, Cowboys, Knights, Raiders. So they do have some games that they can slip there.
They do, but they've also got some very winnable games in there.
Yeah. So, it's really tough. It's a stupid question. I don't know why I bothered asking it.
Honestly, it's that tight that this, it could stay the same, like I said, or it could be completely different.
Yeah.
It's all going to depend on who finds hot form at the right time.
Yeah, definitely. So we'll go into round 19 now. We actually get to talk about a Warriors game. Warriors versus Eels. I'll let you name the Warriors team. Pretty much the same as last week, really, to be honest. But
yep, pretty much. Chan's named at fullback. DW said Marcelo Montoya, wingers, Rocco Berry, Adam Pompey, centers, Luke Metcalf, Sean Johnson is named, but may not play, as we've already discussed. Adam Fanor-Blake, Bunty Arfour, Wade Egan, front row. Jackson Ford, Mitch Barnett, edge back rowers, Tohu Harris, 13, lock and captain. Interchange, Dylan Walker, Bailey Sirenen, Tom Ale, Freddie Lussick.
Yeah. In the Eels, we've got Sean Russell at fullback, Mike Acevo and Isaac Lumilumi on the wings, Will Penasini and Bailey Simonson in the centres, Ryan Madison and Dejan Arce in the halves, Ofaki Ogden and Junior Bolo in the front row, Brennan Hands at hooker, Bryce Cartwright and Andrew Davies in the second row, and Jermaine Hopgood's been named at lock, but may be missing out due to Origin, depending on what happens. And then on the interchange, we've got Luca Moretti, Joe Offie and Gowie, Sean Lane making his return, and Makahisi Makatoa. So Simon's picked the Warriors, so have I. Could be a bit more dicey if SJ doesn't make that flight, but I think if there's any time you want to face the Eels at home, without King Gutho and Flat Track Bully, and Regan Campbell-Gillard and possibly Jermaine Hopgood and Dylan Brown, it's kind of a good time, but we've slipped on this type of opportunity before.
We have. I'm going to pick us as well, though. Just looking at the Eels team on paper, it's very, just thrown together, replacing their big players. To be fair, Mitch Moses, Gutho, a lot of what they do well come off of those two in particular. Playing Ryan Madison in the halves, talented guy, but definitely not his best spot. So
he did play all right for them in the halves a few weeks ago when Moses was out for
he
Origin.
That's what I mean. He's a talented guy and he can fill that hole, but he's not a Dejan Arce. Ryan Madison's definitely not a Mitch Moses, Dylan Brown. I'd be a lot more worried. With that. So I think even if Sean Johnson doesn't make the trip, I still think we've got enough to do it.
Yeah, and Jacko, I didn't mention it in my review this week or in our review of the game. Jacko doesn't get the bench with Freddie Lussick and Suriname both on it. Doesn't make sense. So it doesn't make sense to me either. I feel like they're filling the same role. The only time it would matter if they're deciding that Bailey's going to be just an out-and-out forward and not play in the dummy role. But then we saw that. But in that situation last week, they didn't even bring Lussick on. And I think if you're not going to bring him on, put a forward there instead that you'll use.
What would you do then?
If Sean's out, or what would I do in general?
With that bench, who are you replacing? Who are you taking out? Suriname or Lussick, and who are you putting in his spot?
That's true because we don't really have anyone, do we?
Well, we do if you're keen on giving someone a debut, or he's giving someone like Zion Ma'u a crack, like Jacko says.
Yeah. I would probably give someone like Kalani Going a go. He's been going all right New South Wales Cup, keeps getting named on the extended bench. If you're going to use, Tom Ali only gets like 10 minutes a game now. Jacko does say that he would like to see Zion get a shot. I think Zion's going to be a name featured heavily next year. It's hard to judge because I'm only watching little bits of him in New South Wales Cup, but I like the cut of his jib. So
it's definitely tough missing Neokore and Curran at the same time.
Because that's it. Lussick wouldn't be there if Curran was allowed to play. So, I think that makes it a bit harder. But, if you've got a guy on the bench, bloody use him. I was getting infuriated with that, just thinking either starting Lussick last week and bringing Egan on a bit like the Rabbitohs did, or throwing him on for a spell to give Egan a rest could have made some difference in the game. I'm not saying they would have won, but it would have been good to see something happen. But, it'll be interesting watching it without getting wet. I can pay more attention this week to see what they do. But we'll go on to the rest of the round. Shorter round, obviously, because of Origin. So first game on Thursday night is the Tigers Sharks. Sharks be loving it, getting Dragons and Tigers week to week. I've gone with the Tigers, obviously. No, Sharks. I've gone with Sharks, and so has Simon. Seems like a logical pick.
Yeah, Sharks. Definitely.
Sharks. I was hoping I could trick you and you'd go Tigers. Next game up, Dragons Raiders. I've gone Raiders, and so has Simon.
I'm going to go Dragons here.
You going Dragons? Yeah, I'll write it down. I'll write it down.
No, put it down. I'm actually.
You serious?
They're playing at home. It's the Origin week.
All right.
It is probably 70-30 in favor of being a spike tip. It's a definite spike tip. Put me down. I need to catch up.
Yeah, that's true. You need to go against the flow. Yeah, well done. Then we've gone Eels Warriors. We've all picked the Warriors. Jacko's backing you here. He said he actually thinks Dragons at home could cause an upset. Yeah, I don't see it. You guys are delusional, but it's their own. Next game is Rabbits Bulldogs. Me and Simon both gone Rabbits.
Yes, Rabbits.
I was going to say you're not going to make two stupid decisions in 1 week, I'm sure.
No.
And then last game, Titans Dolphins. Simon's gone with Titans. I've gone with Dolphins.
I've gone Dolphins too. Titans are missing a couple of pretty big players through Origin.
Yeah, we'll see. So, so we've all agreed on the Sharks being the Tigers. Me and Simon have picked correctly that the Raiders will win. You've gone Dragons. We've all picked the Warriors. We've all picked the Rabbits. And then you and I have picked the Dolphins, and Simon's picked the Titans.
Yep.
So, yeah, interesting round. And then, obviously, everyone else gets a bye. But, yeah, now we're into Jacko's favourite part of the show, which is Super League. So, cheers for joining us, Jacko.
Thank you,
see
Jacko.
you next week.
Pleasure as always.
So, Catalans are at top of the table with 26 points, but Lee and Wigan have moved to second and third, sending Warrington down to fourth after their loss to Leeds. And Wakefield are still last despite getting their second win of the season, Richie. They got another one. So, we had Leeds defeated Warrington 22-6. Wakefield defeated Salford 32-6. Lee defeated Hull KR 34-4. St. Helens defeated Castleford 22-0. Wigan defeated Uddersfield 22-6.
Let's go, Wigan.
Catalans defeated Hull FC 28-18. And then this week, we got Wakefield versus Wigan, Castleford versus Lee, Warrington versus St. Helens, Catalans versus Uddersfield, Hull KR versus Hull FC, and Salford versus Leeds. And Simon said, how much is Paul going to lose on the TAB this week? Not sure. Since he left us early, I'll send him a message of the games that we all got it right. And he'll do his multi and we'll lose him more money. And Simon said he's very shocked that Wakefield won a game. Yeah, me too. I actually was surprised when I looked at the ladder and I saw that they got some more points. And I was like, how did that happen? And went back and saw that they won.
Decent margin too.
Decent margin against a decent team.
Yeah.
Well done on them for doing that. But anything else you want to add?
No, I just shout out to you, Brad, for what you've done with your hair. You're looking good, but more importantly, great cause. Really well done. And thanks everyone for the chat. Fun as always.
Yeah, I look a lot better for a mugshot now. I look more criminal with no hair. So it is what it is. But yeah, thank you to everyone that donated to it. Stoked to have got as much money as I could for the cause. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for tuning in tonight and joining us on the Standoff with Brad and Rich. For your weekly update on Rugby League, tune into our show next week at 8 p.m. here on Facebook or YouTube, or at your convenience on iHeartRadio and Spotify. Just remember to search for New Zealand Sport Radio. Cheers for joining me again, Richie, and good night, everyone.